Hello, 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 and welcome. Join me in solving some very relaxing puzzles in Hexcells Plus. This is the second installment in one of my favorite digital puzzle game series. And it's a game accompanied by a very soothing soundtrack. So I hope you find this video very relaxing, and without further ado, let's introduce the game. It's quite a Minesweeper-esque game set on a hexagonal grid. The orange are unrevealed cells. The number in grey, or the game calls them black cells, represents how many adjacent cells are blue, very akin to having a mine in them in Minesweeper. So for example, this 3 has 3 adjacent cells, and the clue says 3 of those adjacent cells contain a blue cell. So we can mark them as blue. And conversely, the 0 clues say there are no blue cells around them, so we can reveal them as black cells. And with all 0 cells, I can safely reveal all of their other surrounding cells. Cells that already have revealed blues around them, as many as their clue says, are basically like 0 cells. For example, this one that I've been circling, it already has 1 adjacent blue cell, so the clue is satisfied, and the other cells adjacent must have no blues. This 4 needs 2 more blues in these 2 remaining cells. This one has warned us about all the blues around it already. The 0s we can follow around. This one must be blue due to these 1 clues. This 2 only has 2 neighbors, so they're both blue. This 1 only has 1 neighbor, so it must be blue. The 3 is finished and the 2 is finished. And that is our first Hexcells puzzle complete. We might do, the game is set up into kind of like worlds, like in Mario, where there's a few levels as part of a world, and then you go to world 2, 3, and there's 6 of those worlds. So maybe we'll try to do 1 world per video. The first worlds will go much quicker than the later ones, but we'll also go slower as we explain and explore the game, so I think it's fair. These 0s are very easy, but I would like to explain this top area because I think it's much more interesting. So here we have a 2 clue. This 2 clue, it requires 2 bomb neighbors, and I just want to explore what would happen if we put a blue below it by these 2 ones in the center here. If this were blue, both 1 clues would be satisfied, and none of their neighbors, particularly these 2 cells, could contain a blue. Therefore, the 2 clue would only have 1 neighbor with a blue, and the rest would not be able to be blue. So this cell cannot have a blue in it. And in fact, these 2 must, because they're the only remaining neighbors. Then all these ones are happy. This one is telling us one of his neighbors is blue, and they only have 1 neighbor. So that clue is satisfied. This 2 only sees 1 more neighbor, and it's telling us there is another blue around it, so That satisfies that clue. Same with this 2. This one is happy, he already sees his blue cell. And these 2 must be blue due to this 2 having 2 neighboring blues next to it. Now we'll go to the easier side with the zeros. But I thought this was such an elegant part of the puzzle, we would start there. So I'm going to speed up a little bit, but I'll try not to go too fast. So the 2s, the only neighbors were, they only had 2 neighbors, so they had to be blues. That finished these 1s, so I revealed around the 1s. This 2 is now warning us about another blue in his neighbors, so that cell must be blue. This 1 is happy. This 1 over here is happy. This 1 only has 1 neighbor, and as does this. He's happy, and the last cell, due to this 2, must be a blue. I believe there's 4 more to go to this world. We'll see how much further we get. These are interesting. This 3, whilst we don't know which 3 of the 4 are blues necessarily, we know that only 1 of its neighbors can go next to this 1, so it can't fill in both of these squares. Therefore it does fill in these other 2, because 1 plus 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2 plus 3 gives us 3. And we know that one of these 2 is a blue, so this 1 is already satisfied by these 2 neighbors. So we can reveal the tile next to it safely. That tells us where this blue is. And we have a similar thing going on down here. There's 1 in one of these 2 cells. These 3 cells are free, and these 2 are definitely filled. This one has a blue. This one has a blue. This one now only has 1 neighbor, so that solves this area. And this 3 only has 3 neighbors. This 1 only has 1 neighbor. Now this 1 says that there is a blue in one of these 2 cells. Therefore there is not 1 in this cell, because this cell is already giving us the hint about these 2. And its other neighbor couldn't contain 1, or it would have 2. And that solves the puzzle quite cleanly. The brackets in the clues tell us that the surrounding blues are all consecutive, or touching, or adjacent, whichever one of those words makes the most sense to you. For example, the blue cells around this 3 could not be on both ends, because then we wouldn't have, with the remaining blue, a way to connect the 2. So it could be like 1, 2, and then if we had a gap here in 3, they would not be consecutive neighboring blue cells. So they cannot be both ends, only 1. And in fact, no matter which end we start on, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, because the cells are consecutive, they will always take these 2 cells. And the same is true for this 3 surrounded by 4. And the same is true for this 3 surrounded by 4 consecutive cells. Since all of these clues indicate consecutive blues. This 2 now says its neighbors are consecutive, and it already has 1 neighbor that is a blue, so its other neighbor must be adjacent to it. Therefore, the blue goes there, and the rest of these cells are black. So this 2 clue here indicates the other blue is, like the rest, consecutive to this one. Therefore it cannot be in this cell, because if it were, they would not be consecutive. And that solves the clue. It must be down here. This clue indicates 3 consecutive cells in its remaining neighbors. This 2 and this 3 are now both all satisfied. They have told us about all of their neighbors. This 3 is also satisfied, so we can follow this chain around, and this 3 indicates them all being blue. And for the same reason as over here, these 2 consecutive blues, with this one being blue, cannot reach the top. And the same is true for the other side. This one only has 1 neighbor. That's the 2 clue finished. And this 2 indicates that being blue as well. Ooh, okay. Now we have the opposite. So these clues with the dashes either side indicate that the blues surrounding them are not consecutive. Therefore this 4, if the blues did not take both ends, then no matter what, 1, 2, 3, 4, they would be consecutive. There must be a gap somewhere in these center 3, so there's a blue here and here. This 2, if both its blues are on the right, it will not be not consecutive. It would be consecutive cells, breaking the clue. Therefore, one of its blues are over here. This 2 says that there is no blue consecutive to this, so this is not a blue. That 3 places 2 more blues in its neighbors and finishes this 2 clue. That's that corner of the puzzle done. Now this 3, it also indicates its clues not being consecutive. And like the 4, there must be a break somewhere in this middle 2 cells. And both ends are blue. That finishes this 2. And this 2 indicates the other blue is not adjacent to this. This 2 indicates the same thing about its blue. This 2 does not have a blue in the center here. Otherwise, no other way you put the second blue would be adjacent. So its clues are exactly like that. This 2 is already finished. Quite an elegant puzzle with elegant rules. This 3 is the same as in the other puzzle. We need to break up the blues somewhere in the middle. Without taking the edges, the blues would all be consecutive. This 1 is finished. This 2 indicates there is no blue here, otherwise its blues would be consecutive. This 4 says that all its neighbors are blue, all its remaining neighbors. This 1 only has 1 neighbor. This 3 doesn't allow a consecutive blue as its final blue. This 3 says this must be a blue. This 2 can't have a blue in the middle, same as before, otherwise the second blue would be consecutive. Always the non-consecutive 2s with 3 neighbors are always the edges like this. The consecutive 2 says there's another blue here, finishing the 3 and the 2 clue. This 3 only has 2 more neighbors left. And now the going gets tough. Okay. This 3 still needs 1 more blue in these 2 cells, finishing this 3, so there cannot be a blue in this cell. hope you could follow the logic through there. And the one remaining blue cell, according to the hint in the top right, must be this last cell. I believe that is World 1 complete, perfectly with no mistakes. We can come back to the game for the later, harder worlds with new styles of hints, but for now, I'm satisfied. I hope you found this video relaxing, slept if you're trying to sleep, or at least wound down, and I hope you could follow the logic as well as I try to explain it. Please leave feedback and suggestion in the comments, it helps a lot and I'm always curious. Have a good night and goodbye.